Hi there. It's not easy to plan for a disaster. Just thinking about it can be hard. It can be even harder if you're a caregiver or if you have a disability yourself. But planning for a disaster does not have to be difficult. In fact, doing it may help you feel better. It can reduce the stress you may feel when you think about a disaster. So we're here to give you some advice about how to develop a plan. We'll be giving you some general information that could apply to any emergency situation like a power outage. But a lot of our advice will deal with how to plan for a hurricane, which we're all becoming very familiar with here in Florida. One of the first things you need to think about with a hurricane is whether you can stay in your home or whether you should evacuate. First, are you in a zone at risk of storm surge or flooding? We have Jessica here to tell us about that.
Thank you so much for having me today. Absolutely. The first thing we encourage you to do when preparing for hurricane season is to know and understand your risk. And that's risk from flood, winds, and storm surge. Evacuation zones are built on storm surge models, so that is the key point to know if you're in an evacuation zone, so you know when an order is called if you need to leave your house.
And how can someone know what zone they're in?
That's a great question. There are several ways to look up your evacuation zone. Disaster.pinellas.org. You can call from a landline at 727-453-3150, or you can go on the property appraiser's website and the information is there. It is also on utility bills for some Pinellas County residents.
And for someone who doesn't live in Pinellas County, how could they find out?
I would recommend calling your emergency management department or visiting your county website page.
And if you find out that you are not in a zone that is likely to evacuate in a hurricane, say you're in I know that the higher letter zones, they are considered to be less at risk for flooding. But if you know your neighborhood floods, even when you get a heavy rain, what would you recommend for someone like that?
So absolutely. So if you're not in an evacuation zone or you're not in an evacuation zone that's called to evacuate, you may want to consider sheltering in place. But consider the structure that you're in, and also, like you said, if your neighborhood floods, and if so, then you'd want to come up with a plan to get to a shelter or friend or family's home.
Jessica, what would you advise about how to determine whether your home is sturdy enough, say if there are going to be high winds with a hurricane?
Well, you definitely want to make sure that the structure is secure, you're able to brace your garage doors, and there's definitely ways to mitigate and harden your home before the storm comes. And we'll dive into that a little bit more coming up.
Yes, thank you very much. One thing that's important to remember is that you don't have to do this alone. There are people who can advise you and help you.